Hi, I'm Andy Temte, and welcome to the Saturday Morning Muse. Start your weekend with musings that are designed to improve financial literacy around the world. Today is May the 24th, 2025. First off, I'd like to wish everyone a happy Memorial Day weekend. I hope you're able to unplug and reconnect with family and friends. Most importantly, let's all make the time to honor the service members who gave the ultimate sacrifice while protecting our country, our rights as citizens, and our freedoms. Thank you. Now, last week, we talked about the history of money. Money, however we agreed to define it, helped solve many of the challenges with the barter system of trade. For ancient trade networks to flourish, traders and governments struck coinage that acted as 1. A medium of exchange, meaning that coinage was accepted as payment in transactions. 2. It was a unit of account, meaning that coins allowed for measuring and accounting for the value of different goods. 3. It's a store of value, meaning that a trader could save coinage to make purchases in the future. And 4, it's a standard of deferred payment, meaning that coinage could be used to enable borrowing, lending, and the settlement of deferred payments, or what we call credit transactions. And this is where we're going to focus our attention today, on the definition of and the history of credit transactions. But before we move on, I want to make sure that one thing is really clear, that coinage played the role of money because market participants all agreed that coinage would serve as money. However, money doesn't have to take the form of coins or paper. Money is whatever we all agree is going to serve as money, and whatever we end up calling money has to satisfy the 4 functions that we just described and the properties of money that we outlined last week. That durable, fungible, all that stuff. Now, let's look first at the definition of a credit transaction. A credit transaction is where the buyer of goods or services promises to pay the seller of those goods or services at a later date. If we think about ancient economies, like our hypothetical traders from Fruitland and Proteinland that we've been talking about over the last few weeks, the availability of goods to trade was likely very lumpy and inconsistent through time, meaning that they're not available in consistent quantities or quality all year long. If we suppose that crops in Fruitland are harvested in the fall, but animals in Proteinland are hunted in the spring, there's a significant seasonal gap between the availability of these goods for trade. These seasonal gaps are a primary reason that traders needed to enter into credit transactions. Now, what might this have looked like in practice? Let's suppose it's late spring and Proteinland traders have lots of meat and fur pelts to sell. Fruitland traders, they don't have any physical goods to give to Proteinland traders for the meat and fur pelts they need because their fruit and crops won't be harvested until the fall. Instead of waiting until the fall, Fruitland traders had to make promises to repay Proteinland traders. These promises were standardized through the use of money as, you guessed it, a unit of account and a standard for deferred payment. The key thing to note is that the money that's used in this transaction represents a debt that is to be repaid. It is a promise. It represents a commitment. Now, if we look at the same problem through the perspective of Proteinland traders, but we now assume that it's late fall, Proteinland traders need fruits and grains from Fruitland traders who now have an abundance of their product because it's been harvest time. But the Proteinland traders have no meat and fur pelts to trade. All they have is the ability to enter into a credit transaction that's denominated in the thing that both sides have agreed is money. Again, the money that's used to track this transaction, it represents a debt that is to be repaid. So here's the key point. If I hold money, I'm holding someone else's debt. In our simple economy, in the spring, fur pelts and meat are sent to Fruitland in return for money. Then in the fall, fruits and grain are sent to Proteinland in return for money. So Fruitland has the fur pelts and meat they need, and Proteinland has the fruits and grains that they need. Money, which represents this promise, is the tool that has been used to solve the seasonality problem with trade between these two economies. The money used to enable trade flows back and forth between these economies as, you guessed it again, a medium of exchange, a store of value, a unit of account, and a standard for these deferred payments. Now, for those who are interested, our example is rooted in what's called the credit theory of money. Looking back into the historical record, the first credit transactions date back to about 3000 BCE in Mesopotamia, which we now know as modern Iraq. But verbal agreements, similar to our hypothetical example, almost assuredly significantly predate this written record. So, why is this so important? What's the modern lesson? Well, we're going to be talking a lot about credit and debt as we move forward. We live in a consumer-driven economy where debt is out of control on a number of levels. As of the date of this recording, our national debt is unsustainably high and stands at $36.8 trillion US dollars, or $107,713 for every citizen, and that includes minors under the age of 18. Similarly, household credit, our mortgage loans and credit card balances, etc., are another $18.2 trillion US dollars, or about $53,278 US dollars for every citizen, every man, woman, and child in the country. Now, we'll be talking about our issues with debt in much more detail as this series progresses, but for now, knowing where credit and debt got their start with the advent of trade is an important history lesson for everyone to understand. Until next week, grace, dignity, and compassion. My name is Andy Temte. This is the Saturday Morning Muse. You can find the show on all the major streaming services as well as out on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, rate, and most importantly, share this public good with those that you care about. The show is produced by Nicholas Temte, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Muse.